Good morning. Plan for today is to change an ABS unit on a transit van. It's an 08 plate. I think that's a Mark 6 or Mark 7. I'll double check and hopefully put that in the description, but it looks like a Mark 7. ABS unit change. The actual physical change I think is going to be quite easy. I'll show you in a minute on the camera where it's located and what my plan is. But I've done a bit of research and I think the ABS unit is actually part of the immobiliser system on these for some godforsaken reason that I don't understand. So I may have to do some programming. I've got some cheap Chinese Ford tools that hopefully will do the job. Only one way to find out, but to start with, let's get the physical job done, and then we'll worry about plugging it into the laptop and programming it after that. It might be that I can't do it with the equipment that I've got, and that I'll have to get someone to come and give me a hand, but if nothing else, I should be able to get the physical unit changed and bled today. Right, let's get to it. Okay, if we're looking right hand side of the van, as we're looking at it, obviously near side, passenger side in the UK, ABS unit is just in down here. I don't know if you can see the silver shiny thing that I'm pointing at here. That's the ABS unit. So I think I'm going to have to take off this fuse box unit, move it out of the way, unship it, hopefully not have to unplug it, gain access. There's 4 brake lines at the top and a couple I think go into the bottom. But to start with, I'll just try and gain access so we can get a better look at it. Okay, so my original thought was to take this off, hopefully gain some access, but it actually sits on a metal plate, this one here. It goes down the back. It may be bolted on. I'm just looking a little bit rusty down there. And it's also bolted on sort of at the front under here somewhere. I think it's going to be a fairly major strip down to get in there. I'm not sure if it's worth it. So I'm going to have a better look. I've got the old unit, so let's have a look at the new unit, see if we can decide how it's mounted on. Okay, so this is the replacement unit. Obviously it's second hand, come from a breakage yard. You can see they've just snipped the cables. It's bolted on, 3 bolts to the bottom. See that? 3 bolts to the bottom, and all the pipe work on the front. And I think it sits in there this way around, so I can probably reach to do most of that without undoing the fuse box, I think. So I'm going to start by undoing the bolts at the bottom, which I may regret depending on how tight everything is in there. Can I get to it? I may have to crawl underneath and feel them. 1, 2, 3 bolts. I've unclipped some of the cabling so I can get a little bit better access, but I think that'll have to do. What I'm going to do first though is I'm going to prep the replacement ABS unit and get all of the old pipes out so that I can get it in quickly without losing too much fluid. Okay, so these seem to be 13mm. These are 11mm spanners required. Obviously these have got cut pipes, so I'm going to do them with a socket. It's just a bit safer. No, that one will. Grab my ratchet. Okay, so that's ready to go. Okay, show you what I've got. I have a selection of spanners. The ring on that one is going to be useless, but it's quite a good strong spanner. So that's what I've got. That's an 11mm. I've got just a normal 13mm, and I also have, because it's really common to have 11mm brake fittings, I've got a cut spanner. These are okay, but they do tend to splay open a bit, so you tend to have to just be a bit careful with them, but it's got me out of trouble in the past. One thing I do know when I come to undo the pipes, so I'm going to just loosen them off now, is we've got to be careful that the brake pipes themselves don't spin. Obviously they've been fitted for a long time, I think they're steel on these, and so what tends to happen is they corrode into the connector slightly, and then you'll twist the pipe when you undo it. I've done it a few times, then you've got to start replacing pipes, which I'm going to try and avoid. So just slowly, gently does it, and we'll see what happens. Obviously you're not going to be able to see a lot of this, so you'll just have to believe me. So the first one moves real easy. Fourth one, these are the ones at the top I'm doing. Fourth one is more tricky to get to, but I can probably come from that angle. Yes I can. Okay, great, so that's the 4 top ones loose. I've not undone them all the way, there's no fluid coming out, but they're undone and they're not twisting the pipe. So now I'll do the 2 on the side. It's a bit of a relief, to be honest. So now I can get underneath and start thinking about the 3 bolts on the underside of it. Do I even need to get underneath? I don't know. Feel them. So it's sat on a bracket just above at the chassis arm, so I'm not sure getting underneath is going to gain me anything. I'm going to try and do it, I feel. So again, when you're working blind, really handy just to refer to this. 1, 2, 3. So it's fitted like that as we're looking at it. So it should have 2 bolts on either end and 1 in the middle. 2 bolts, they further away, they're closer to me than the one in the middle. Right, okay. Apologise, all you can see is the back of my head. I'm just going to have to deal with it. Not the easiest thing to see, and not the easiest thing to reach, but it's not the worst I've ever done. I'm working a little bit blind on this bit. Again, yeah, so they're 8mm, the bolts under there. 8mm socket required. Can't really get my hand in on it, which is annoying because it's quite loose already. Say if, like me, you drop the bolt, it's worth finding it straight away. And there it is. Okay, so that is the bolt, a 8mm, tiny short thing. Should be 2 more of them in there. Which I think I can get to, no problem. As long as a bit of contortionism going on. Everything's surprisingly easy. It's all coming off quite nicely, and that's concerning. I'm so not used to that happening. It's almost finger tight straight away. Right, I'm getting covered in brake fluid, so my hands are going to be complaining at me in the end. I would recommend wearing gloves. Okay, so all those 3 bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about which one goes where. I'm now in a position where I can just do the brake pipes and take it off. Just wedging a rag underneath to try and soak up any of the brake fluid that I'm definitely going to spill. So I'm getting covered in brake fluid. So we're back in a minute. Right, so I've just stopped cleaning my hands, and now I've got some barrier cream. This I think is from Screwfix or Tool Station, something like that. It's designed to go in like a little wall mounted thing, but if you work with stuff all the time, well worth using barrier cream, especially when you're doing something like this. I should probably be using gloves as well, but I've run out. So yeah, if you're going to be messing around with fluids that are in your car, they're all bad for you. They'll all cause sensitization of your skin. You might get away with it for a while, but eventually you'll ruin yourself. So highly recommend gloves and barrier cream. So the last thing I've got to do is electrical plug. So that looks like it's got a lever that probably holds it in, I think. Can't quite see it from where I am. Okay, there we go. Old one off, full of brake fluid. Be careful where you put it. Will kill stuff. Kills your garden pretty well. If you've got grass, it'll kill that. And if you don't want the grass, I suppose. So we're going to whip the new one in as quick as we can. Try and minimise the amount of fluid that's absolutely pouring out of every hole. One of the things you've got to be really careful of is especially on the smaller pipes, the thread is quite fine on brake fittings. It's not like a standard thread. Come on, focus, there you go. You can see how fine that is. It's really easy to cross thread them. So you want to get a good few turns in by hand before you go anywhere near them with a spanner. Because if you get it wrong, it's a world of pain. You've probably got to replace the pipe, the fitting, and if you've really got it wrong, you'll be replacing the ABS unit again, and you're just trying to fit a new one, so you don't want to ruin that on the way in. The one closest to the front of the van was the most difficult, but it was also the last one I did. And that's where it's good to have the unit loose, because you can move the unit to suit the pipe as well as the pipe to suit the unit. The cut spanner becomes useful. These are they're not tight, but they're difficult to do by hand, mainly because of where they are. So I'm just tightening them up with a spanner, but I'm not having to use any force. So this is perfect for that. Because it will go around the pipe. I can get into a small gap with it. I've got a few more options in terms of how far I can turn each time. Okay, so I've just nipped up these 4 at the top and these 2. I guess on the side, inboard one there. Can you see that one there? Focus. And that one there. So 4 at the top and those 2. I've nipped them up. You can see how much fluid I've dropped. Can you see? That is an absolutely soaking rag. So I'm going to clean up now. Okay, I'm going to just plug the electrical plug in because I don't want to get water in there. Easy done. It's still not bolted up from the bottom yet, but I'm going to clean it all first. Brake cleaner is obviously good for this, but I've run out. I'm just going to use some TFR. And a little squirty bottle. I don't want to leave any sat in any chassis rails. Don't really want to leave any anywhere. Oh, it's quite hard getting it. Okay, so that's that bit. And then just a watering can. Hence why I didn't want the electrics exposed. To be honest, dumped the whole lot over it because brake fluid is nasty. The advantage of a gravel drive is it'll all disappear. There's only a little bit spilt, but that's much better. Okay, so next thing to do. Bolt everything back up, so 3 bolts underneath. These are going to be tricky to do, I think, now, so I'm just going to try and get one in. The reason I cleaned it before putting these in is it stops any fluid getting trapped underneath. Quite a bit of movement in the unit, which is fine. It's not bolted up yet. But figuring out where the hole is. That way a bit, I think. There. I had to push it out towards the wing. Get that in the end. This is the front of the bolts that I'm doing at the moment. It's actually easier if you're kind of going backwards. I've got it started, I think. Yeah, I think so. I can't turn it very much. I'll do that with a ratchet in a minute, and then the last one is kind of in the middle, and the outboard towards the wing, which I've got no idea what I'm actually going to be able to get to. I don't even know where it is. I can feel it with my little finger. Really hard to turn, but you can kind of feel it. It's such a funny angle. Don't really know if I've got that or not. Where's my ratchet gone? Any guesses? Oh, my ratchet's already down there. I'd obviously chuck the rag over the top of it, so let's give that a clean off, because that'll be covered in brake fluid. Or well, no, I should have washed it off, but okay, let's see what we can do. Really difficult access wise for those. I might just grab, I'm going to grab something to lie on so I don't get wet, and I'll come back. Right, I'm sure this will get cut out, but I'm going to crawl underneath. Yeah, all I can see is the chassis rail, which is nice and clean now. Yeah, that's not going to help at all. Okay, I don't think access from underneath is any better, so I think we'll just carry on like this. Okay, so that's the 3 bolts that go underneath, done up. I was kind of doing that, if you can imagine, I was coming in from the back with my right hand, to kind of over the top of the unit, just trying to support this, and then turning with my left hand the other side of the unit. And this ratchet sort of sits in the chassis rail. The reason I had to hold on to this is all those bolts would have gone in quite easily by hand if you could get your hand in there. So you can kind of turn them a little bit with this if you can reach, but you're kind of just on fingertips everywhere. So kind of hold it like that and then ratcheting up. It's a slow process. The chassis rail's in the way, so you can't see anything from underneath or on top. But hey, look, that is the ABS bolted in. I'm going to put those 3 nuts on, and then we can bleed it. Okay, so I don't think undoing the fuse box helped much, because I didn't move it in the end. But what I did do, which I think probably did help, so I unclipped these cables. It just gives you slightly better access, you know, you can get your hand around and move around. So I think that's worth doing. Easy enough to do, you just kind of gently pull them off and then they just clip back in. So these ones clipped back in. That one's a bit more damaged, that clip, but hopefully it'll get back in. That one's in there. There you go, so that's that. Next thing is bleeding. I've lent my compressor to someone, so I'm going to try and get it back so I can use my vacuum bleeder. I think that'll make this process a lot easier. Right, I've not bled it yet, but curiosity's got the best of me. So let's see if it will start. Wow, that's fantastic news. So that does mean there's no immobiliser fault. Now we have got another fault on the dash, but I've not bled it yet. I've not checked any fault codes. The ABS fault that was there seems to have gone away. So I think that is plug and play, which is brilliant news and much better than what I'd read on the internet. Okay, so being got my brake bleeding kit, just plugged in the compressor, you pull the trigger and it sucks brake fluid through that tube. That's it, nothing more complicated than that. For those that don't normally do brakes, perhaps you're having a go yourself, master cylinder is here. The important thing there is your brake bleeding order. So generally, the general rule is furthest from the master cylinder first, then you work your way towards it. So on this fan, if we look at it, away. So the master cylinder is on the driver's side. So I'm going to do passenger rear, then driver's rear, then passenger front, then driver's front. I'll probably do that a couple of times around and go from there. And I will show you as well the bleed nipples. With the van, there's enough room for me to crawl underneath it. I don't really need to jack it up. It's safer not to, so I'm not going to. I can get to all of the brake points. I've already given them a little bit of a squirt with some cleaning fluid, and we'll get on with it from there. Okay, I apologise about the lighting. It's not the best, but I am crawling around under a van. So I think this is either a 10 or 8mm. It could be a 9. There's funny sizes often, these little bleed nipples. It's a 10mm I'm trying now. The 11 didn't fit. It's a 10, so try and get a bit of leverage on it. Often these can be difficult to undo, so you want to loosen them a little bit to start off with, and then put the pipe on. Hopefully that'll be enough, and then all I do is pull the trigger on here, and hopefully you can. Okay, so I've not undone that bleed nipple enough yet. There we go, and can you see the bleed nipple? Move that out of the way. You see all the air coming through. Now some of that air is actually because it seems to, when it's vacuuming, it seems to leak slightly around the pipe. But you can see there's sort of the odd bubble coming up through. Just wait for the compressor. Now when I've completely drained the system or partially drained the system, I like to get a lot of fluid, especially through to the furthest point. My theory being is that air can be trapped anywhere in that line, so I could get a bit of fluid here that looks good, but actually the air bubble is down the other end, right? So I want to suck it all the way through. Whenever you're doing this kind of thing, you need to make sure that the master cylinder is topped up, because if you suck air through the master cylinder, you basically got to start again. At the moment, there's not a lot of fluid come through, so we'll just keep going. It's hard to see in my canister. It's gone a bit less see-through over the years. So one thing I can do is, as long as I keep this pipe upright, I can actually pump the brake a couple of times, because there's fluid there, it shouldn't suck the air back through. The air bubble should pop up through the fluid if there is any, so I can give it a good couple of brakes without having to clamp the bleed nipple. I'm just going to try that. It'll be interesting, because I don't normally get to see what happens there. Let's see if I can move that out of the way a little bit, maybe up there. Give you guys a better view, and me if I watch this back later. See, never wants to set up right. It's got a little hook on the top of it somewhere. Can be handy. Look out there, out the way. That over there. Or not. See how that goes. Come on, play nice. How's that? Okay, well, you can kind of see that. So I'm going to go and pump the brakes maybe 2 or 3 times. Just see if there's any air bubbles left in it at the end. And I might also watch the video back, as I've got it there to do so. Okay, so I've pumped that a couple of times. You can see it's pushed a lot of fluid through. Let's stop the video and have a look and see if I can see what. Okay, so didn't look like any air came through there. I wish I wouldn't focus on that. Not that way. Anyway, let's do that back up. Tight as we can without stripping it. And then what I do when I pull this cable off, I actually just pull the trigger a little bit. And the reason I do that is to stop any fluid sort of staying in the pipe and dribbling it everywhere. It makes it quite a tidy job. So that's one. Now we may find we've got to do this quite a few times, but it's the same process for each wheel, so I won't repeat the video in for each wheel. Just trust me, it's exactly the same. I'll probably do the same kind of thing, suck a bit through, give it a couple of pumps, go from there, see what it feels like, see what kind of pedal you get. Okay, I've gone twice round with vacuum lead and then pumping out. I don't know if you can see how much fluid in there. It's about this level. I've used a whole litre of brake fluid. To be honest, it's about the minimum that you need to do a whole system. There's obviously some left in the system, but to get all the air out, you've got to pull it all through. This is in between the middle and the max. It's not quite at the max, so I ran out of fluid. So the next thing to do is to take it for a test drive, give it a bit of a clean. Got a bit here and there, but the other thing I need to look at is, I'll show you, if I take you under the passenger wheel, if you're going to be able to see it, look at this cable. Looks like the wheel's been hitting that, and that I think is an ABS sensor cable. So if we have any faults, that could be the culprit. So before I go for a test drive, I'm going to take that up and maybe do something with it so it's a little bit more out of the way. Okay, so been for a test drive. The ABS light's still on, which I'm not surprised at. So I'm going to plug it in and see what's going on. Right. I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh, I can do that on my laptop actually.
A few moments later.
Okay, so still getting a fault, and it's the longitudinal sensor that just keeps repeating as a fault. I'm going to show you where that is. If you see the glove box here, I've opened up. There's Jamie's stuff everywhere. Sorry, Jamie. I'll pick it up. Don't worry. And if you look in behind the glove box, you think I can't see it anywhere. I can't see it anywhere. It is. If you can kind of see this air ducting is actually right behind there. So if I go, no, that's not it. I can't even see it from here now. I lost it. If I go around here, that's it there. Right in the back of the firewall, behind the glove box. That there is a longitudinal sensor. I want to see if I can get the part number off it, so you can come with me for this journey. See if you can see the top of it. Let me know where it's gone. All I want to see is wires. Wires, wires, wires. There it is over there. Oh, there it is gone. okay. I should be able to read that in a minute. I'm going to come back to it, but yeah, that's the problem. Okay, so that's the transit done. It does still have a fault, but it's with the longitudinal sensor. I showed you where it was. Second hand on eBay for 20 quid. Guy who owns a van, he's happy with that. So I'll just order one of those and put it on. Hopefully that'll clear the fault. I know the system is linked because it's ESP, so it's linked to the ABS system. I'll change that, we'll get it done. Hopefully that'll clear all the faults and it'll be good to go. Happy days, another job done. See you in the next one.